Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. As we continue our series on the key principle of the Second Vatican Council, today's Do You Know question is, do you know why Vatican II insisted on dialogue with non-Christian religions? It's important to remember that for centuries, the Church had an attitude towards non-Christian religions similar to the one that it had with its own Christian brothers and sisters, namely one of hatred and suspicion, alienation, separation, ostracized, and so on. And also, in many cases, leading to violence and death. This whole series of suspicion especially was true with regards to Judaism, where the Church had a long and horrendous and violent history with regards to its Jewish brothers and sisters, oftentimes leading to all sorts of persecutions and deaths. And so Vatican II was particularly aware, the Vatican II participants were particularly aware of this long history of alienation and hatred and suspicion, and really influenced very much by the inspiration, again, of Pope John the 23rd, really opened the area of dialogue and ultimately produced a document called Nostra Aetate in Latin, and it was called the Declaration on the Relationship of the Church to Non-Christian Religions. This was also very true in terms of the relationship with Judaism, because the Vatican Council participants, less than 20 years after the Second World War, were also reflecting on the Church's role in the entire Holocaust horrendous history that had developed during the Second World War. What role did the Church play in that, in either abetting or really going against what was happening at the Holocaust? So that whole issue was really in the background as they spoke about and interreligious dialogue. So much so that Nostra Aetate spends the bulk of its text devoted to the relationship between Catholics and Jews, especially trying to obliterate in many ways and reconsider the whole history and in light of the promises of the Old and New Testament. And also, by the way, Nostra Aetate devotes significant chapters on Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. And so Nostra Aetate called for a variety of things, but one of the most, two or three of the most important things that it did is it called for the respecting of the riches of other religious traditions other than our own. It also talked of ways in which the riches of those religious traditions can actually revitalize the faith and worship of our own Christian faith, and so on. And then also then called specifically for interreligious dialogue, which challenged, by the way, all Christians to learn, understand, respect the riches of these other religious traditions. And I'd like to just quote a significant quote from Nostra Aetate, which speaks about this respect that is due to other Christian religions and why, to other non-Christian religions and why. This is from Nostra Aetate number 2. It says that the Catholic Church rejects nothing of what is true and holy in these religions. It has a high regard for the manner of life and conduct, the precepts and doctrines, which, although different in many ways from its own teaching, nevertheless often reflect a ray of that truth which enlightens all men and women. The Church, therefore, urges its sons and daughters to enter with prudence and charity into discussions and collaboration with members of other religions. So the recommendation of Nostra Aetate, first of all, that we accept the riches and we respect that, and we work towards dialogue and interreligious dialogue and respect for one another. The significant thing that changed as a result of Nostra Aetate was missionary work. In the past, missionary work was devoted to converting the pagans. But in light of Nostra Aetate and respect for other religious tradition, missionary work, the focus and shift changed for missionary work. And essentially, missionaries are open to dialogue, to seeing and respecting the riches of these other traditions, and seeing how Christianity can work collaboratively with the riches of these other traditions to really build up the reign of God in our midst. Therefore, the missionary stance is one of service, dialogue, and collaboration with other religious traditions to really, as I said, build up the reign of God among us. With regards to Judaism, and this is rather controversial as well, but with regards to Judaism, many people within the Catholic Church suspect that there's no need for conversions for Jews simply because they have a legitimate covenant with God, which God has never rescinded. Even Pope John Paul II emphasized very clearly that God does not go back on one's promises, and therefore God's relationship with the Jews still maintains, and they have a legitimate covenant, and therefore, according to many theologians, there is no need for conversion with Jews because of their own legitimate covenant with God. So we respect the Jewish covenant with God and do not interfere as Christians. Now, Nostra Aetate very strongly ends its document with there is to be no discrimination whatsoever based on different religious beliefs and practices. And I'd like to just end with that quote from number 5 of Nostra Aetate. And it states that, therefore, the Church reproves as foreign to the mind of Christ any discrimination against people or any harassment of them on the basis of their race, color, condition in life, or religion. And therefore, very clearly, the document ends with an encouragement to enter into interreligious dialogue and put away all discrimination, all suspicion, all hatred, and enter into a collaborative work with one another. So we need to continue to allow the other religious tradition to choose their own path to God, because we do not interfere with the path. They have a freedom to choose their own path to God, and we had no need to interfere with that. But we do consistently act collaboratively and work together to build the reign of God. And today, most especially, we need to focus on overthrowing much of our suspicion and prejudice, not only consistently still of Jews, but also of Muslims, especially since 9/11. So I hope this has helped to explain just a bit of why Vatican II insisted on dialogue with other non-Christian religions, and I hope you'll return again to more Do You Know series questions as we continue to explore further the teachings of the Second Vatican Council. Thank you very much.